Election Day is now only a handful of days away, and we have our final generic ballot poll of the season ready. Will it be a red wave or a Democrat upset? To recap, the Republicans started out in the fall of last year with an eye-popping 13-point lead, which included considerable independent support and not an insignificant amount of Democrat crossover. As the year progressed, however, they lost some of that support. But since election season really seemed to start out with the wake-up call of the Supreme Court Dobbs decision, Republicans have largely had a 5 to 8 point lead, except for a short period in September, which I would really attribute to polling aberrations. So here are this week's results. Republicans are down 2 points from last week, but they still have a commanding 5-point lead. Now keep in mind, this is a 2,500 person nationwide likely voter poll, a massive sample with only a 2% margin of error. And since we poll this every week, we've polled more on this topic than pretty much anyone out there. In 2018, Democrats had a 1-point lead in our final poll, but also a more sizable lead of 3% throughout October, and they wound up with a modest 43-seat pickup in the House. This is certainly down from the 10-point lead we had for Republicans in 2010 that heralded the huge red Tea Party wave, however. Does this mean that a red wave isn't going to happen next week? I don't know. It's a tough call. For many reasons, early voting and polling data challenge is not the least of them. It's becoming much harder to predict turnout, especially in midterm elections. Democrats have also shown the recent and miraculous ability to turn out millions higher than expected without the telltale signs of momentum or enthusiasm. We currently have Democrats weighted +2, down slightly from the +4 we had in 2020, to reflect a voter ID shift we've seen over the last 2 years. Both Republicans and Democrats have begun identifying more as independents, but more Democrats than Republicans. But what happens if there isn't a repeat of the same expectation-shattering turnout the Democrats had in 2020? Well, that's how you could see a red wave, despite our polling saying just Republican up 5, and the Real Clear Politics average showing Republicans with a slightly narrower lead. Here's the chart we showed last week with a few updates. Since last week, Republicans gained 2 with men but lost 5 with women. They gained 4 with younger voters and lost 10 with the 65 and older crowd. They lost 7 with white voters, but gained a huge 13 points with black voters and 3 with Hispanic voters. There were some party movements also, but to be honest, a lot of these internal movements between weeks are likely noise. Here's what isn't noise. Republicans lost slightly to moderately with every group since the spring except black voters, with whom they've gained 21 points, and Hispanic voters with whom they've gained 3 points. Now, polling is noisy. That's an unavoidable fact. So let's ignore the trends and just average the results. Republicans have a 12-point lead among men, a very slight edge among women, and they lead upper double digits with over 40 voters, but are behind by 13 with those under 40. They lead the white vote by 15%, but they also lead among Hispanics, as they have continued to do reliably over the last 6 months. Finally, they are only down 34 points among black voters. That's almost a 30-point shift, at least, from a decade ago when Democrats led by more like 65 points among black voters in our polling. Of course, that begs the question of whether black turnout will match what black voters tell us in our polls. Finally, independents give Republicans a solid and reliable lead all of these last 6 months, and Democrats led among independents in our 2020 and 2018 polling by about 4 points, so there's an almost 20-point swing as well. So to step back and ignore the noise, swings, and trends, with the same polling methodology with which we accurately predicted 2020 and a weighting only slightly adjusted, the Republicans have a moderate lead in the generic ballot. They've gained big with black voters, are even with women, and have a lead with Hispanic voters and an even bigger lead among independents. They even do better among their own party than the Democrats. That fits with other indicators we've seen, like a low Biden approval, Biden performing poorly among issues most voters care deeply about, and Republicans also have a not insignificant edge in enthusiasm, voter impressions of it being important that Republicans gain control of Congress, and even a meaningful lead on party trust questions. All these signs point to a comfortable Republican win in Congress, with a caveat that results may be even larger if Democrat blocs do not turn out to vote, or less if Democrats pull a mail-in miracle out of their hats. Thanks for following our content. If you like it and want to see more, please subscribe and follow us on Twitter. Thank you.